Hey everyone, this is Andy Wheelock, the Coffee with a Geek program. This is new November 2016. Google is supposed to be having a new announcement in November about Daydream, so I'm looking out for that. So I have an awesome guest as always, and a world traveling guest, and we'll talk about some of your world travelings. I have Caitlin Krause with me today.
Hi everybody. Hello.
We'll talk about that too. And Caitlin is a global innovation leader, international speaker, writer, artist, mindfulness consultant. So we've got to check into that mindfulness stuff that you're doing. And you're a coach and educator.
Yeah.
Your background is varied. You've been in the States, you've been all over the world, and you've traveled and done a variety of things, including MindWise, which we'll talk about in a minute. And you're involved in creativity and innovation consulting for the modern global age. You're the creator of Mindful Leadership Group for organizational leaders. We can talk about all that good stuff too. And you've got a book coming up on the horizon in early 2017. So I can't wait to talk about that. But before I let you go completely, you also have some quirky details, which are fun. So you spent a lot of time in the USSR, now go, and you grew up there.
I feel like we're on a game show. This is great.
Well,
I feel like we're on a show of like, this is your life, and we get to play two truths and a lie. So yeah, keep going. This is awesome.
There is a game part to this, so you just hang in there. So you've lived in Brussels. You taught in an international school there for 2 years. You taught in Switzerland before you founded MindWise, and you went to a digital computer camp using old school tech code and CAD. That sounds fun. So with that, Caitlin, let's talk first of all about your projects and your website. And if you'll bear with me, you can start talking, and I'm going to bring up your website. So do this without causing too much. So that should be presenting to everybody. So walk us through your website.
Okay, I could start storytelling. For me, MindWise is all about curiosity. So when I founded my company, I was thinking about what sort of solutions people are looking for that are a little bit outside the box, problem solving, but really kind of taking a lot of what we might call separated skill sets and combining them in really strategic ways. So my website, MindWise, that's the name of the company. It has to do with mindfulness and also using that sense of wisdom, like that knowledge about how to be really intentional with your learning. As it's scrolling through, it's looking at different services that I provide, but it's really about roles that we play. So here with the clouds, it's wonder, which is that sort of concept about dreaming and letting go of holding so tightly to outcome, and then all of this creativity really thrives. So wonder is kind of the heart of certain innovation models, and that's part of the creativity training that I do. I'm a multimedia artist too, so a lot of these different applications have to do with a background in different arts. Hacking, that page, it's kind of scrolling through, but that hacking page, the picture's in Barcelona, and you can see it. And I don't know, Andrew, have you been to Barcelona?
I have not.
Okay. Well, it's one of my favorite places, and it's not mellow at all. It's very, some people think, oh, MindWise, it's got to be about going in a field and meditating and just, taking away all distraction. But actually, this hacking page is about problem solving and really embracing those different, what we might call distracting influences. So here on the street, there was a busker, there was music playing, there's a crowd underneath. There's the reflection of a church that's in the window. You can kind of look closely and see a security camera. So basically, as you're looking at situation and solutions coaching, it's all about really taking in all those different elements and making sense of them. So yeah, there are many things to explore on the website. You can go from hack to scribing, which is about communication, reaching your audience, storytelling. So yeah, through this, I do a lot of different public speaking. There's me presenting at ISTE where we met.
Interesting.
But yeah, yeah. So there's a lot to explore there because I think given my pretty diverse background, I wanted to put together a business where I would be able to coach and train other people. I would work with educators, as well as people in different organizations, kind of looking at modern thinking in a new way. So, yeah, so just being part of all those different programs is part of what I'm doing right now worldwide, and still continuing to speak and enjoy that level of connection. So yeah, it's exciting. Thank you.
So let me jump into maybe the second question that I put on our kind of scratch list of questions, which was, tell me about your conceptual framework for mindfulness. I know you've maybe tiptoed around it a little bit, and tell me how that it influences your work and your authorship, and how does that relate when you bring it to, say, teachers?
So it's a huge question.
Yes.
Talking about the frame, it's like, what is it in concept and body, and how do we deploy it and make it something personal? I guess, first of all, philosophically, if you and I think about how we learn best, we can talk about this, but I think it's about freedom and about sort of an open invitation to discover more. And I think that's a great theme with technology, because a lot of my learning in the past involved me just tinkering and playing around with things and figuring it out as I went. But that level of curiosity really takes trust in a system and maybe a mentor on the side. And I know a lot of teachers are playing this role now in really great ways, just creatively inspiring and saying, here are a range of options that you can take, and actually, what are we trying to get out of it? Like, what is the outcome? Why are we studying what we're studying? And so I don't take your question lightly, because I think it drives at why I'm doing what I'm doing. That being said, you could talk for hours about this. Mindfulness for me is the connection point. It's the kind of foundation underneath that whole mindset about learning, because it can really boil down to awareness. I think you were asking me how I would explain it and how I would, were you asking how I would use it for teachers?
Yes.
So I don't want to jump ahead,
No.
but there are two people that I connected with a lot with their definitions from the past. Ellen Langer, she gave a TED Talk. She's a cognitive psychologist at Harvard, and she was describing mindfulness and saying that it's a state of conscious awareness in which, actually I have the word for word, in which the individual is implicitly aware of the context and the content of information. So just being consciously aware of what's going on around you, and also the context, like why it's there, for what purpose. So she talks all the time about how we have these hidden cognitive biases, and sometimes magicians use them in magic tricks and make us think, oh, this is amazing, and it is, but it's because we're not actually looking and tuned in. Jon Kabat-Zinn, he was working with mindfulness-based stress reduction and really developed a great model. And he defines mindfulness as paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and then the key is without judgment. So when Jon Kabat-Zinn defined it as that, suddenly it kind of changed the world, because a lot of people were trying to relax by pretending that stress didn't exist, like saying anxiety is not there and I'm going to just ignore it. And instead, he worked with a lot of people with post-traumatic stress syndrome and all kinds of issues, and basically said, acknowledge it, accept that it is what it is, and try really hard to let go of judgment. When I'm looking at that, I studied his methods, MBSR. I studied the neuroscience behind how the brain's working, and this was all in the past 10 years. And then I thought, how great would it be if I just brought that into the classroom, that level of awareness. And for me, it's more about fueling both creative ideas and also people feeling like they have a voice. Like they have a voice. It might not be the same, thank goodness it isn't, as the person next to them, but it's still valid and it's still authentic. And it doesn't rely on them saying to me as a teacher, is this good enough? Is this good enough for you? Because I think so often we focus on evaluation methods, and then students are conditioned naturally to just try to meet that expectation instead of listening internally to something that's going to carry forward, giving a sense of ownership. So for me, I boiled down mindfulness to 3 A's, which is for me being aware. So that awareness of your senses, how you're feeling, also the environment in the room, awareness of, like Ellen Langer was saying, all the context and the content for what you're studying and what you're doing. And then the second A is advancing, because for me, I found that we can self-impose limits, and those limiting beliefs can really be problematic as people are developing, especially in education. So that idea of advancement is all about that sense of purpose, like why are we doing this? And maybe we think we have some limits and we can actually stretch further, and maybe working together you can decide that something is actually a deeper sort of engagement. So that level of growth, it's not static. To me, mindfulness doesn't mean that you're just checking out and saying, I'm done. It's about that level of advancing and wanting that personal growth. And then the third A is the hardest. It's authenticity, which is a word that's battered around and thrown around, but that's the non-judgment for me. The authentic self is the teaching self that I think I look up to Howard Rheingold. I look up a lot to Parker Palmer and people like that, reading The Courage to Teach, or, looking at Howard's methods of connection. I feel like we can pretend to have all the answers and to be Oz behind the curtain, but then students ultimately, they can understand that that's not real. And also, I think we know it too. And for me, being authentic as an educator actually let me connect more with my students and say, let's figure this out together, and also that you're not putting on a mask. That authenticity is what keeps, in mindfulness, it's actually what allows you to get past some of those roadblocks that would stifle learning. So that's how I explain it. And it's much more fun in practice. Like it's great talking about it, but it's like when you do that, and you combine, say, a design thinking workshop coupled with that level, then suddenly you understand your brain, and then you start to apply it in different ways. So yeah.
So can you just tell me the 3 A's again, so I have them?
Sure. It's awareness.
Yep.
Advancing, and authenticity.
Do you think in the end, putting those all in practice are empowering? I know that doesn't begin with an A, but do you think that's the ultimate
I think
takeaway?
Yeah, I gave a talk about superheroes, and I really think it is empowering, maybe in a very surprising way. Like it's like a quiet force for good. And that's another thing I was going to say. I brought this paper with me. Studies have linked this idea of strength to this embodied ethic. Like you start to practice something like that, and then the whole nature of how you would judge yourself growing changes. It is like having a superpower, because you start to look around and really appreciate the process, and students start to take even more ownership of learning and knowing themselves. And when I gave the talk about it being a form of a superpower, I wasn't saying it makes you into somebody that's perfect or impervious to problems. It's just that instead of having, I showed an image of an empty jar, and instead of that empty jar being fear, like what could be in the future, I can't define it, that all of this evaluation, suddenly the fear turns into an opportunity. So I really think it is something that can be really empowering for both teachers and students. Yeah, absolutely. You could tell I'm happy just thinking about it. Yeah.
So back to my first question. We met at ISTE and you presented at ISTE. Yes. Tell me about your conference experience in general, and what were your key takeaways from a great ed tech conference?
That's awesome. Okay, so first I'm going to ask you to just give me a word for ISTE. So we're sort of batting them back and forth. Like, what's a word if I say ISTE? What comes to mind?
Networking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Connecting.
Yeah. So I feel that, and I would say definitely web. I had an image, conscious collaboration, sort of like the brain has neural networks. It sounds funny to say I went to ISTE and I found my people, but being so, I mean, America's a big country, and it's like you get together in Denver and suddenly everyone together you knew loved ed tech for some reason. So you already had this context to be there. Sensory overload at times. It's full on. But I really felt at ISTE, what I liked about it is, it was very real. I felt like there were different programs that were not just about technology applications, like not just about the bells and whistles, but about why we're doing what we do. There were a lot of roundtables and meetups after hours, and people having fun. So yeah, I think it was my first time at ISTE, and I really loved it for that reason, because you could have the big hall where you saw the thousands of people, 20,000 people all together, but then you could have those little subtle moments that have deep connection and deep conversation. So yeah, I liked it. What do you think?
So, I always have a great time at ISTE. Like I said, it really helps me connect with, I think we talked about it before, like our tribe of people that you have a common vocabulary with, and you can kind of maybe talk a little deeper about your subject matter. So it's always good. And learning is just, I love learning from other people. So
yeah.
Let me talk to you. So you traveled to Denver, obviously, and you've traveled worldwide, and including lived in, foreign countries. And so tell us about, I guess, through your experiences in your world travel, you've seen education from a variety of perspectives and a variety of cultures. What are your perspectives about education around the world, and what can you learn, and what can I guess countries learn from each other about good education?
Well, what's really interesting, and I love these questions because it truly is something that has to do with my background. I was a product of international education too, having gone to international school in Moscow as a student. And I think there's so much in that question about different cultures, backgrounds. What I found when I moved overseas to start teaching, I was very curious about the whole experience and about students and what they would be like. And I think the human nature is universal. So you're going overseas and you're teaching internationally, and kids don't change. They still love to discover. You have all these wonderful moments. I would say that the transience, like in international education, people might have 4-year assignments at a certain company. Maybe there's more mobility. It makes the structure even more necessary because people are coming in and out of different systems, teachers and students included. But that's interesting because it makes the time together so precious. You form these connections and bonds, and then we'd always have a ceremony at the end of the year for students who were going to different schools. And it's, it's hard. It's hard in 6th grade to get reassigned to a different school and then know that you won't see your same friends in middle school the next year. And I mean, that springs to mind because it was just such a rich connection. So for people who are interested in the whole lexicon of the schooling, they call it the third culture. So have you heard of this? So
no, I haven't.
Students overseas and teachers, but mostly students, they'll be called third culture kids. So TCKs for short. And I was one of them. And basically TCKs develop certain resilience levels and life skills in certain ways. So when you're teaching, you know that some of them are very adaptive. They're kind of like chameleons. And the third culture means they have their culture from their home country, and they have the culture of the new environment where they live. And then they have that third one, which is the preservation of self in the middle of all that change. So somewhere in the middle, they're either a hybrid or the school creates that feeling of home. There's an independent identity, but you don't exactly fit in either world. So yeah, so in terms of cognition, I think it makes you very much aware, and also it's really ripe for these different projects that you can do, all about reflection, sharing your experiences, connecting with others, using empathy as a real connection point to understand somebody else's history. Yeah, so for me, it was a whole world that opened up when I realized that these students are the carriers of stories, and at the same time, they're also preserving their own identity and their own associations. So, I mean, just imagine a parent conference where you say to a parent that does not speak English, feel free to speak in your native language. I'll be the listener. The student is going to direct the conference because the student is actually the one that's the link between me and the family. So you form this really wonderful bond where suddenly you realize that, yeah, the goal of education is not just an isolated school, it's the whole society kind of growing together. So yeah, I think that's something really exciting that could be somehow modeled in different ways, I think, around the world. I think some of those skills I'd love to just bring back to the US, to certain programs where you talk about that diversity. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me, artistic creative innovation, storytelling meets tech. We talked about this.
Yeah. So it's a big topic. What specifically did you want to hear about storytelling and tech?
Well, I think we had talked about this in our kind of pre-conference interview. We talked about artistic creative innovation.
Yeah. So I feel like this could go in so many different directions because right now I could talk about VR, I could talk about storytelling and the kind of arc of a hero's journey. But I think that storytelling is the heart of human connection. So personally, what I'm doing a lot right now is looking at storytelling tools that we have and modern digital media uses so that both in education and also in companies, people know that there's so many different methods right now to have what we would call immersive environments. Yeah, and so for me, I mean, story is key, and I don't define story as a false made-up truth. I define it as actually a tale that you can tell that shows your perspective, that actually can travel from me to you, kind of like in ancient times when people told stories. They would make paintings on cave walls, and yeah, somebody else would have to take down the stories and make meaning out of them. So I think essentially they say a good story has a beginning, a middle, and an end, not necessarily in that order. And right now, you can look at the meanings and messages underneath them. They have impact. People remember stories more than they remember factoids and figures. So yeah, so in my work, I'm working on VR storytelling, 360 media and storytelling, a lot of image involved with stories. And yeah, we can do so much with it. I think it's just beginning in terms of VR. Yeah. Were there other things you wanted to hear about it? Because I could just go on.
Well, I want to transition into virtual reality. So tell me about your upcoming projects, and maybe is VR included in that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a VR application right now that's in the works. So it's exciting because there's a kind of like a beta version, just a prototype to really test out. And with virtual reality, I don't know if I specifically mentioned. I know I talked about it with the website, but I'm a photographer as well as a writer. So what I do a lot is different immersive media work. So I covered the Zurich Film Festival as a press writer. I'm using a lot of my photography and writing as different ways to find out sometimes more about a topic. And I've enjoyed being a part of the press, my whole life. I like to say I'm not a consumer of media, I'm also a producer. So naturally what I've discovered is that using 360 images has several benefits. You can't, like right now, you can't see what's over there, but if I had a 360, you'd be able to see the whole scope of where I am, and then get a better sense, I think, of movement and time and place. And it takes less focus off the craft of just a still image, and 360 can be zooming and seeing things in different angles. So when I covered Zurich Film Festival, I had a Samsung 360, a Gear 360, and I wrote an article about it. Maybe I'll put the link in the notes. But it was really interesting because people right now, it's like this eye of Sauron where people are looking at it, not sure what to make of it. But the scenes look really great because suddenly you see somebody walking down the green carpet, and it's not just your focus on the star. Like Daniel Radcliffe was there, and you can see all the fans waving and people wanting to interview him, but you can also see the photographers in the back, and the whole scene. It's really wonderful. So in sum, the VR app is something that a team is building here. So I have a partner, we're working on it, and the engineering behind it is incorporating mindfulness and giving people an immersive experience that's also got all of those A's embedded into it. So the awareness, authenticity, it's actually something that reduces anxiety, but really kind of simple, like you just want to play and go back to it. So yeah, so that's using a Vive right now, and building it is really exciting because I get to play around with the design and the artwork, and both ways to make it look and feel beautiful, and also the intention behind it. So yeah, I'm a big fan of VR. And
all right.
I went into Google last week and tested their VR lab. So that was exciting.
Oh, you are so lucky. I'm so jealous.
Yeah. I mean, actually, I should just say props to Google, and if Rupert's listening, thank you so much, because I went in and got to just, be there playing the games, and it's a whole room that they've created. So you're really in your own space, your own wonderland. It's great.
Amazing. I'm excited about that possibility. So it's just starting. We're just catching the tip of the wave. So it's a nice position to be in.
But just imagine, I mean, I can see your office space right now. It looks lovely. It's got fluorescent lights. It looks like it's getting dark. Sometimes
Yes.
I think I think the day can be sort of draining, and I just imagine, people having some headset nearby where they can just say, I want 3 minutes. Like the app I'm building is just 3 minutes where you just want to kind of wash the palette clean again and then be able to focus and yeah, so it's really, I think VR doesn't always need to be seen. When a technology is new, we focus on how it's so alien or it's so exotic, and I think that's the exciting stage right now. I'm excited for the future when like kids, adults, people can just say, wow, this is really fun, and I'm going to use it for 3 minutes and then go back to what I'm doing. um, you know we have a whole history in our species of humans realizing, like Salvador Dali and Einstein included, realizing that the more you can relax the mind, and they used to take those power naps, and the more you can just let go of some of that tension, the greater your chances of inspiration are. So that's my level of connection to it.
All right. Well, I've kept you for quite some time, so I think it's time to dig into a little fun. So we're going to play the Speed Geek questions. So let me just bring up my page again here. Going to be exciting. These are the tough ones here. So you get 3 questions. They're meant to be kind of short answer, but you can elaborate a little bit if you'd like. And are you ready?
Yeah, I'm gonna try not to elaborate too much. So.
Here, let me see.
I'm ready. I'm feeling very mindful.
This out, everybody. So here we go.
Mm-hmm.
What is your first storage device? So floppy disk.
Oh gosh. Okay, so my first storage device was a floppy disk, and I think, do you remember how they were yellow or green or blue?
Yeah.
Like you just had.
Yeah, they were kind of like almost a vanilla color, right?
Yeah, and not floppy at all. But I remember that. I remember the silver part of it that you could kind of ping back and forth a little bit, and I'm hoping. I know I broke one of them that way, just kind of like moving it too much, the access part. So, yeah, I want to say that my first one was yellow or red. Can't remember.
All
but
right,
it was
so kind of a hard plastic, maybe 3x5.
Yeah, exactly. With the silver that I was moving around and broke.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So question number 2 is, what's your favorite way to unplug from technology? I'm sure you have a lot of good ones here.
I'm a big nature fan. I have a phrase I just made up that's get outside, like basically lose yourself to find yourself. I really like just getting lost, like, having an idea of a map, but just going out and exploring. Switzerland's great for hiking. And yeah, I think my favorite way to unplug is really just doing that. It'll be a hike or a run, and then you just see what you find as you go. And you don't even have a device. Like when I'm doing that, I don't bring headphones. Because I really want to feel it around me. Yeah.
Nice. I'll agree with that one. I think that's a good one.
Yeah.
All right, here goes your last one.
What's yours? You need to answer that one.
Oh, geez. Well, I like playing ice hockey, so I'd say ice hockey is my release and my time away. So that would be my favorite way. Indoor. We don't.
Okay.
Doesn't quite get that cold, although in the middle of winter probably. But so, okay. So your last one is your favorite app.
Okay. My favorite app lately is actually something really cool that I will tell people about. It's sort of a secret. It's called Spark Post now. It was Adobe Post. I'm trying to show it to you. So basically, you can remix and make little billboards with a combination of text and photo. It's really easy on your phone. So if I click remix, I can take a background picture. And it's funny you say that because right away I was thinking, oh, I'll use this for Instagram and just different. It's nice to be able to have some preset templates, but also a little bit of freedom to create. Yeah, so it's nice. It just basically has different images and text.
Nice.
You can revamp.
All right, now I have to hold you up here for one more second because you didn't give me a chance, or I didn't ask. I forgot. I brought this up earlier, but we didn't come back to it. Is your book? Tell me about your book, when it's coming out, and what juicy details can you give us?
Okay, I'm so excited about this book. So it's basically it's called Mindfulness by Design. And earlier I was mentioning design thinking and this whole creative ideation. The book is a practical guide for teachers that uses my experiences in the classroom, basically gives teachers an explanation of what mindfulness is, how to apply it in education in a really, really immersive way where you don't have to take a time out from your coursework. So what I do is I map out what it is in the beginning, then I show teachers some exercises just for us, and then I talk about, and I give examples. So I have real exercises that you can use in the classroom across any discipline. So it's all labeled. I didn't mention it, but I was an interdisciplinary curriculum coordinator. So I've worked with just all different courses and topics. And mindfulness is universal, but this book is designed to make it easier for teachers to apply it and not have to say, oh, I need to take a timeout from classes to teach mindfulness. So the end of the book also has student testimonials and examples from the classroom and a lot of different student voices involved. So it's fun to read, but it's also something really practical where I thought, well, what would I have wanted to know about mindfulness before I started using it? So
awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'll definitely get a copy. And Caitlin, thank you so much. You're doing such amazing work, and it was a real pleasure to meet you at ISTE in Denver, and I hope that you can make it to ISTE San Antonio this year.
Yes, I want to be there, so I'm motivated.
And we'll stay in touch, and I'll keep promoting your work, and I'll be sending out tweets about your work, so keep it up.
That sounds great. I just have a couple things I want to say.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to thank you for this opportunity to talk and connect, and also just give a lot of credit to teachers, because I think you walk the walk, and we're doing all of this, and whoever's listening, I just give you a lot of credit too, because I feel that sense of connection, and it means the world. Thank you.
Great. Thanks.